What's up, weirdos? Welcome back to my channel and to another live stream. I am wearing my skull blanket because it's very cold in my apartment right now. But what's going on? Can you all hear me? Is it all happening? I think so. How was your day? I had work today. It was fine, generally fine. And now I'm here. I just finished watching Videodrome. I guess I started it literally this morning before work and finished it after work. I don't think I tweeted about this or anything, but I was in Baltimore over the weekend for my brother's birthday with my family, which was really, really nice. So I definitely got behind on a lot of things, and I was like, yikes! But I got it figured out, and that's fine. Hello, Larry. Hello, Chris. Glad you are both here. And then I also realized this morning after I'd gone to work that I never put up like the link for this stream, and so I was like, oh my gosh, what if like no one remembers there's a stream? But I'm glad that some of you are here, thank God. um Hello, Mark. Hello, Ollie. Ben, what's up? This month I'm just so excited about to be doing Cronenberg films. He's a director that I feel like I know so much about, or like I understand his aesthetic as it is compared to other things like in the mainstream horror movies or even cult cinema or whatever. But I haven't seen a lot of Cronenberg, so I feel like I feel like I've mentioned Cronenberg when talking about things, not on my channel necessarily, but in my daily life. And I've been like, I've only seen like one Cronenberg movie. How do I know? I don't know. So I really wanted to spend this month like really diving in and getting to know his work a little bit better. And I thought Videodrome would be a fun one to start with because I love Debbie Harry, punk rock queen, and it's one that I just had heard about more, I guess, that I was surprised I hadn't seen yet. So that's sort of why I wanted to pick this one first. Um, let's see, and hello, or Sky Angel. I guess we'll be saying Sky Angel now. Let's see, Michael, Artie Zombie. So Ben just said that Cronenberg is going to be at, is that Texas Frightmare? What is TFW? That's my guess. I'm not sure. But that's very cool. That's very cool. But where should we start? So one thing I do want to mention to you guys is that because I didn't do a horror trailer, I feel like I'm just being like, sorry to do all these things. Because I didn't do a trailer this month, I'm not sure that there was less voting on this one than in past polls. And so I wondered if people like didn't see where I had posted that. So I put the voting link in the description of this live stream. So if you haven't gotten to vote yet and you still want to, I'm going to give you guys until the end of this stream to put your votes in. So go ahead and do that. And then I'll announce them at the end. So yes. Yes, Texas Frightmare Weekend. That's cool. You go every year. That is one I've really wanted to go to. And this year in particular, I was thinking about trying to go this year. But I'm going to another event that weekend, so I can't, which is a big bummer because I didn't get to go last year. But I think I'm just going to make it a priority for 2021. That feels so far away. And just make it happen because it's just like a commitment that I go to every single year. I'll just tell you, I go to this like big weekend concert with my brothers every year. And it's sort of like our yearly moment to bond and hang out and drink and whatever. And so I obviously don't want to miss that. And they just happen to fall on the same weekend this year, but it is what it is. Hello, David. David says that The Brood is one of your favorites. That one's doing pretty well in the polls, I believe. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see who wins. Let's see. Actually, The Brood's not doing so well. It's doing okay. It's doing okay. Okay, so I guess we should just go ahead and hop in. Ollie said it's okay you didn't do the trailer. Yeah, I literally just ran out of time before I left for Baltimore. That's really just what happened. I just ran out of time. I tried to do it on Thursday night, but I saw Invisible Man that Thursday night. It just got too crazy I wanted to get that review up, and I was like, all right, something has to go. Something has to go. I can only do so much. And so I let it go. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead. But don't worry, David, the voting's not over. The voting doesn't end until the end of this live stream, so you can convince your friends to vote for the movies you want in the chat. Okay, so let's go ahead and start in on this one. Like I said, the only things I really knew about this, I knew there was the iconic vagina stomach imagery with the VHS tapes. I knew that imagery about this movie, and then I knew, of course, that Debbie Harry was in it. So throughout this month, I'm hoping that we'll learn more and more about David Cronenberg as we go along, but I do want to give you just a little bit of background. So he's from Canada. His dad is actually, I think, from Baltimore, which I thought was funny because that's just where I was this past weekend. But his mom is Canadian, and that's where he grew up. And he actually started out in life thinking he was going to be a writer, like of novels and not of movies, which I think is interesting. Especially because there's so many like crazy visual aspects of his films. And he also, when he was in college, had I don't know if this was his major or just an interest or whatever, but he did have some studies in science, particularly botany. And I thought that was interesting because so many of his films, I mean, as we're going to start to talk about, body horror is his thing, right? It's in his horror work. Body horror is a huge trend throughout all of his work. And I think there is something interesting about a guy that thought he was going to be writing novels, is really interested in science and plants, and I don't know. I just think it's interesting. Oh, and also a word I had to look up today, which I'm sure I'm going to butcher. It's called lepidopterology. It's basically the study of moths. And I was thinking about like moths and cocoons and things like that. And I was like, all of that makes a lot of sense to me in terms of like Cronenberg's work. So that was kind of cool. So when he started out, he did a couple of like shorts, very artsy movies. Apparently I listened to an interview with him today saying he was very inspired by people like Andy Warhol, because this is back, I guess, in the 60s. And what happened is at a certain time in Canada, in the early 70s, they tried to get, they wanted more film works to come out of Canada. They wanted to make films that the country could be proud of, to add to their culture, because a lot of people in Canada, I think this is a thing I've heard from a couple of different writers from Canada as well, but there can be this tendency to just want to, like, if you become successful, flee Canada and come to America, to Hollywood or LA or whatever. And they wanted to like establish filmmakers and culture creators, if you will. I made that term up, in Canada itself. And so they started putting a lot of money into movies, and people could pitch them movies. And so, so the first one that actually got backing was, of course, Shivers, which someone already mentioned this. Maybe we'll get to watch it this month. Maybe we won't. But I've actually never seen it. And I've never seen most of his films, so I feel any of them I'm excited about. And so Shivers came out. I think I can't remember how successful it was, honestly. I'd have to look that up, or if we talk more about that movie. But Videodrome was a few movies after that. So this came out in 1983, and technically this wasn't like a smash success. It had a budget of almost $6 million and recouped only $2 million, which is really not great, and also surprising because, I mean, at the time this came out, I assumed like Cronenberg by this time was very well established, had come up with a lot of movies that were big in the States, and Debbie Harry was very famous, and it's a very cool movie. So I was surprised that it didn't really do well. Coming over to the chat for a hot second here. Let's see. Hello, Brandon. Let's see. Did I say hi to you? Sorry, I'm just trying to scroll up and see what I missed. Let's see. We got people like in The Fly. Ben says, "Long live the new flesh." I have a question for you guys about that line later on. Um, Mark says we gotta do a Clive Barker month. That could be cool. Nice. Okay. You guys can just keep chatting. um, but yes, what Ben has just said in the chat is true and what I was talking about. Canada will pay for most of the movie you make if it is shot and takes place in Canada. So that's sort of the thing. You can't really take you can't film a movie in Canada and set it in Oklahoma. They want things to be made in and about Canada itself. And David Cronenberg was a huge part of that. And also throughout his work, especially through these early years, like he didn't piece out and go to Hollywood. He had a lot of offers to direct some really, really big movies, and he turned all of them down. Apparently, he was even offered to direct Flashdance, which I think is just very funny. And there was another big one. I can't remember what it was now. If anyone knows it, let me know. But he turned down a bunch of movies, and he wanted to stay in Canada and keep making his own weird things because he didn't want to like answer to like a studio system or anything like that. And he wanted a lot of creative control over his movies, and that is also a big part of this, especially of all these early horror works. And eventually, he did sort of step away from the horror genre. I guess I would say by the 90s. Does that feel right? By the late 90s, he was kind of done with horror. But apparently there is some sort of Cronenberg something in the mix to be created soon that I think is a horror movie or a horror series. He's very interested in streaming, and he's talked a little bit about like Netflix and things like that. So I don't know. Hopefully we'll have a new horror Cronenberg soon. Okay. So let's go ahead and hop in to some plot. So our main character is Max Wren, okay? And he is done, let's see, let me pull up his profile because I had seen, sorry guys, 1 second. For some reason, when I live stream, my internet just can't handle doing basically anything else. But I am grateful it lets me live stream, so that's fine. Okay. All right, I've got the IMDb up now. I feel safer. So Max Wren, who's our main character, he's played by James Woods. And he runs this like sort of TV station, and we'll get into that in a minute. But some of James Woods' other work that you might know is Vampires. He played Hades in Hercules. Hello. Yes, the animated film Hercules. He was in The Virgin Suicides. He's done a lot of voiceover work, just a million voiceover things. And he continued playing Hades in like a lot of like Disney Channel things, which I think is just cute. Let's see. I think those are sort of the big ones. He's done a lot of films. His early career seems to be obviously a lot of Canadian stuff, I'm pretty sure. Never mind, he's not Canadian. He's from Utah. Learning something new every day. He's from Utah. Sorry, guys. But yeah, so his character is basically the president of this TV network that specializes in like wild programming, if you will. And he's trying to look for something that will bring in new audience members, really shock people, show them something they've never seen before. And he basically gets wind of this thing called Videodrome, which is a TV show that is supposedly being broadcast out of Malaysia or somewhere, or eventually they say Pittsburgh. But it's supposed to be this literal sort of almost like a live stream, if you will, of very extreme violence and like sex stuff. And so it's supposed to be shocking and crazy, and to the best of his knowledge, fake. So it's still TV programming, and he wants to show that on his network because he thinks it's going to be the next big thing. And in the initial thing that he sees, it's like a woman being hung up and she's being whipped, and it's in this sort of like reddish orange room that you'll start to see throughout the film as well. So that's the first one. So he does watch this thing. He loves it. He's excited about it. And then, literally from this point on, you start to not be super clear about what is hallucination and what is actually happening. There was a lot that happened early on in the film that I really thought was just actually happening, and then towards the end of the film started to realize that maybe none of that was real. And I think that's a really cool thing that this movie does automatically, is it really like tricks you a lot about like obviously we have the unreliable narrator going on in this one, where we have Max's character having all these hallucinations, and so because he doesn't know what's real and what's not real, neither do we. And I think that's always like I love an unreliable narrator, because it's like you really never know what's going to happen. You can't really see what's coming next. I'd also like to know from you guys in the chat, do we have Dan Schmatz in here right now? Kim, I love that. That's my friend. Hi, friend. You're all my friends. Okay, so I would like to know in the chat if you guys have seen this one before. Have you seen Videodrome before, or is this a new one to you? And just as a reminder to anyone that might be late, you can still vote on the rest of this month's Cronenberg movies. You just have to hit the link in the description box. Okay, so in this first thing, which eventually we find out is a hallucination. By the way, this is all spoilers for you. We see the lovely Debbie Harry, who's playing a character named Nikki Brand. She has dyed her hair, her lovely blonde, iconic hair, to some sort of red color to, become the character. And she's on this talk show, and they're having this conversation. And it's funny because now that I look back at it, I can't believe I didn't understand it was a hallucination, because they're both acting so strangely. So you have a TV host, you have Nikki Braid, you have Max Wren, and then you have this literal TV on stage with this Professor Brian Oblivion, which is just an excellent name. And they're all talking about sort of the repercussions of extreme violent and sexual programming, and if that is bad for people to watch. Which is also funny to be talking about that in an actual horror movie. It's like, I think this conversation comes up every time some new violent video game was released, or some new crazy violent horror movie, or particularly in the early 2000s, it's like when you're thinking about torture porn, where you start to get these sort of uprisings about what is too far, what is too much for people to see before it is going to brainwash them or make them more violent, give them more violent tendencies. Does a shooting video game make a kid want to shoot people? Like, those are the questions. And so it's like, that's sort of, in a very short form way, kind of what they're talking about. But we also have this funny thing of having Brian Oblivion on a literal TV screen being interviewed, which is funny because throughout this movie you'll see a few things that we just have nowadays, like, live streaming, which I assume was maybe existed, but not in a prevalent way like they could have done it in that scene back in 1983. And then later on in the movie we're going to get some like VR, things like that, things that are just basically existing now to a certain extent. And so it's always fun to like, that's something I do like when horror and sci-fi blends a little bit, because especially like back in the 70s and 80s, because you're like seeing them do stuff that you're just like, yeah, that's how it is now. They just like predicted this. So I think that's really funny. And during this interview, Max literally asks Nikki Brand, Debbie Harry, on a date. And it's so weird because first of all, he says like, she says something about sexuality that I can't remember what she says. And he points out her dress and it's basically like, why are you wearing that dress if you don't care about sexuality? And it's a fine dress, maybe scandalous for the 80s, and definitely not scandalous for now. Lots of coverage. And she kind of like smiles at him, and they keep talking, and then he is like, will you go on a date with me? And this is like supposedly on live television, and she apparently says yes, because you would think, or while I'm watching this, I'm like waiting for her to like slap him in the face and tell him to get out of here. And she's like, yes, that sounds great. And so it pretty much switches to their first date together, if you will, or hangout or sexcapade or whatever it's going to be. But they're at his apartment, and she finds this Videodrome. And she puts it in the TV. She watches it with him, and it's like, you know, the whipping scene that we've already seen before. Um, nice. Sorry. Dan in here says that he's got it on Laserdisc. Hell yeah. That's awesome. Apparently, Dan has a very large Laserdisc collection, which I find very impressive. Okay. So. Bloop, bloop, bloop. So she watches it. She is sexually aroused by it, which is surprising to Max. At first, he's like, "Oh, it's too much for you. You shouldn't watch it. It's too much." And she starts watching it, and she's like, "Ooh, sexy." And so they end up having sex, and they sort of have this, you know, like S&M style sex going on, and which includes him like piercing her ears, like putting needles through her ears while they make out. And it's such an interesting scene because it's not S&M in sort of a way that feels aggressive, if that makes sense. As I've seen portrayed in other movies, it really is portrayed as like a sensual, almost emotional thing going on, which I thought was kind of interesting because I don't know if you guys saw. I didn't review it, but I talked about this movie on my channel a few weeks ago called Dogs Don't Wear Pants, which is this Finnish film that came out last year. Is it Finnish? I think it is. It came out last year, but it's about like a dominatrix and this guy that sort of form this like bond with each other. It's an excellent movie. It's streaming on Shudder now if you want to watch it. It may be on Amazon. I'm not super sure, but it's really, really great movie that deals with all that kind of stuff. Um, but yes, so they have sex. Great. Um, and so then, we also have this character of Harlan. Let me see what that actor's name was. Peter Dvorsky. His IMDb profile picture looks like a picture from the movie, so I'm not sure if he's done much else. Let me see. Oh, he's the Dead Zone. And other things, I don't know what they are. He looks like he did a lot of TV. Good for you. Okay. So he's the dude that originally showed Max the tape. Max goes back to Harlan's office, where they find out that I think they find out at this point that the thing is not broadcasting either correctly or something else. But they start talking about how it's broadcast out of Pittsburgh. He, at dinner with Nikki, ends up telling her it's broadcast out of Pittsburgh, and she says that she wants to go audition to be in one. And once again, he is assuming that everything that happens, I mean, he does discourage her. He's like, I don't want you to do that. I think he even gets kind of mad about it. But I think he still thinks it's not real, like actual violence. I still he thinks get it together. I think he still thinks it's like fictional violence. But maybe I'm wrong. So she goes to Pittsburgh, seemingly, and never returns. Oh no. And then at this point, Max is like trying to like hunt for the truth. So this is like his little like hero's journey. He wants to find out, yes, what happened to Nikki, but also just what Videodrome is all about. Like, what is it really? Because he's starting to have these hallucinations, which are gonna come up throughout. But the imagery that we will start to get a lot is the vagina stomach. And it's fun because the vagina imagery comes up throughout the film, and not just in the stomach, like even the eyeglass company that we're going to talk about in a little bit here, their like emblem is vagina shaped. So it's really there throughout the movie, which is just fun. It's just fun. But it also reminded me because the vagina stomach, if you will, it consumes things, it takes things in. It makes me think about I saw this lecture recently about female cannibalism in horror movies. Lauren and I talked about it a little bit on the channel, but it was an interesting thing about, like, they talked about the movie Teeth, where it's like in Teeth, the vagina has literal teeth that will bite your penis off and consume you. It will like take you in. It will eat you. And I don't know. It's really, I always find that imagery really really cool. Uh, are very interesting to me. I don't know. But I like how this thing, it consumes things, and then like makes it a part of himself. It's like this other entity. So that's cool. Raise your hand if you like vagina stomachs. Okay. Um. So let me come back to the chat here. Is everyone okay? Yeah, and Ben puts it in here in the chat, but he hides, or he does, I don't know if he's trying to hide the gun in there, but he has a gun that he ends up putting in his stomach. Unclear if he's hiding it there or if it's like he's just like testing the boundaries of it and then it gets stuck in there. I don't know. Oh, hello Ashneer, what's going on? What's going on? Okay. What else? So yeah, he's trying to figure out what's going on. So he's going sort of back and forth between some people now, trying to find the truth. And he knows he needs to get some info from Oblivion, because he's the guy that knows what's going on. And he has a daughter named Bianca who's going to come up a little bit. And they both, this father-daughter duo sort of have this idea. Oh, wait, hold on. I hope I'm not going to say this wrong. I also just finished watching this movie for the first time, and now I'm, like, scared I'm going to do something wrong. Okay. Okay, so basically they let Max know that the Videodrome is ultimately, like, a mind control device, if you will. And so it's, like, as you watch the tapes, or as you watch it, that's where his hallucinations are coming from. It's like, it's literally like sort of hypnotizing him in this way and can train him to do different things, which I think is really interesting because that's right back to what we were talking about at the very beginning of this, which is like violence in television. Like, does it, like, are we machines that can be programmed by just what we watch? Like, is that the truth? And it's like, we understand brainwashing to be a very real thing. If you sit someone down, it's like, did anyone see the new Child's Play movie? I don't think it was a good Child's Play movie, but it was a fun doll movie. But what happens in that is that Chucky watches Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which is a great movie, and from that learns that he needs to stab people. And because he's a robot, so that's how he is programmed. And so basically, Videodrome is supposedly doing a similar kind of thing. And also, which I didn't get all of this, so I am pulling some of this from the Wikipedia. It's also a movie I feel like I need to already like watch again. But there is also something about the viewer will develop a brain tumor from watching this, and that's what's going on. If anyone has further interpretations about like the use of this all, please put it in the chat, because I've only watched this one time and I'm like, what? Like, literally, because that's why we started 10 minutes late today, because I was sitting in the living room watching the last, however many minutes in the movie, and I was just like, am I understanding what's going on? Like, am I taking this in right? So if you guys have any other things about this, please put it in the chat. I am not the expert on this movie. Definitely not. Okay. So, okay, so we also find out that Oblivion is dead. And these videos that they had been using were pre-recorded before his death, because he actually attempted to stop what they were doing, and stop this like you know, political fucked up thing they were going to use this Videodrome for. But they already had all these videos of him, so all the videos we've seen of him are post-mortem, which is interesting. And then, okay, and then we come to the eyeglass company. So it's like, it starts to be this whole like underground conspiracy. It's like basically the plot feels small at the beginning, and then it starts to open up and open up and open up throughout of it. It starts to feel bigger and bigger. But basically it's called the Spectacular Optical Corporation, once again with a very like vagina looking emblem. And apparently it's not a real eyeglass company. It's like a front for a weapons manufacturer, basically to destroy people. Toby! Sorry, Toby just coughed. It was sad. Toby also ate a giant chunk of cucumber earlier because it fell on the floor, and I tried to get it out of his mouth, and whenever I try to get something out of his mouth, his instinct is to swallow it immediately, so I can't. And so he just swallowed this huge chunk of cucumber, and I was so sure he was going to choke, but he seems, other than that weird cough he just did, he seems okay. Hopefully he's fine. I'll let you guys know. Okay. So, okay, and this is also where a bunch of stuff happens in a row that I'm not super sure exactly how everything's connected. Basically, Max kills a couple of TV execs, okay? He also at a certain point finds out that the Videodrome has not been streaming on his network at all. He thought it was, and so he's like, is everyone already, hypnotized or whatever? But no, apparently it was just being used on Max, so they could get Max under their control to carry out the rest of the vision of this thing. I think. But Bianca, who's the daughter of Oblivion, she somehow basically reprograms Max to turn against Videodrome, to turn against himself, if you will, to be able to stop it. So he shows up at a lovely dance number television appearance, which was one of the funniest moments of this movie to me, because it's all like so dark and all these things. And then all of a sudden there's this sequence of all these women and men in fluorescent colored dance costumes doing a dance, and I don't know why. It's for the opening, or no, the trade show, the launch of the new eyeglasses line, which of course is all for front anyway. But they have this, big show, and there's a lovely dance number, which I really enjoyed. I hope all those dancers have lived a very happy life afterwards. But anyways, the main evil dude is up on stage giving a speech, and Max murders him. Ooh and ah. And I should also say, before Bianca, or with Bianca convincing Max to turn against Videodrome, she also reveals to him that Nikki basically doesn't exist anymore. She died before he ever... Okay, so she died via the Videodrome stream or whatever, and everything that he has seen of her has been a hallucination, and she doesn't actually exist anymore because she's dead. So that basically just like throws him out of everything in his brain, and he is like down to like stop all of this. But so that's how we kind of find out that like even the first like interview that we saw at the beginning, like none of that actually happened. And we see throughout the movie, like there's one point where Max wakes up with a dead person in his bed and calls a friend to like come see, and the dead person is gone. It's like nothing. He cannot figure out what's real and what's not real, and it just gets worse and worse. So when he finds out that Nikki's not even real, it's like, yikes. Okay. So he kills that guy, and he kills both Harlan, who, by the way, explodes. This is, so, it's so funny to me. These last two deaths make no sense to me, but I loved it. It was like, the first one, so basically at this point, the gun that was in his stomach has now Max's stomach has now become like a part of him and part of his hand. It's like covered in flesh and very disgusting. But he shoots Harlan. Oh no! Harlan puts another VHS thingy in his stomach, and his stomach like gnaws it off. Very very a la Teeth movie. And then he like backs up into a corner and just explodes. I don't know why he explodes, but I liked it. And then Convex, who's like the main kind of brains behind the operation dude, he is on stage, gets shot, and then like has a very Cronenbergian, if you will, just disgusting deterioration full of goo and grossness out of his whole body. And it's gross. It's gross, but it is fun and lovely, and I was very impressed by that death in particular. I thought was really really cool to watch. Okay. And by the way, special effects were all done by Rick Baker, who you'll know from doing everything Rick Baker's done. But I thought this was a really good representation of like his like icky work, so that was fun. Okay, so the end of this movie. So he gets on this boat. I don't know why. I don't know why he's on this boat. I don't know whose boat this is, but he gets on this boat and there's a TV on there, and he sees this video or this stream or whatever you want to call it, hallucination, VR experience, unclear, of Nikki telling him that the only way to complete everything is to ascend to the next level and leave the old flesh, which basically means he needs to die. His body needs to die so he can ascend to whatever that means. She explains that there is a life after death, that she is happy how life is going for her now. I don't know. Now that she has died. And she shows him what it'll be like, basically, and it is an image of Max on the screen. He shoots himself, and the TV explodes with guts flying out of the TV. It's just excellent. Love it. And then Max does it in real life. So I think this is sort of our moment that we get to see the separation of a virtual world to the real life world. Sort of only in this last moment of the virtual world sort of exploding and him killing himself, and then cutting to like him as a real person, not in hallucination, saying long live the new flesh and killing himself. And that's the end of the movie. Whew. So it is wild. This is a freaking crazy movie. So I do want to say, I'm sorry, I'm also like behind in this chat, so I hope I didn't miss too much. But a couple of things I want from you guys in the chat for a horror movie club. So one, I want to know sort of what your favorite body horror moment of this movie was, whether it be a death scene or it could be a TV gross out scene, a VHS gross out scene. Just let me know which one was your favorite. And the second thing is I would like to know sort of your like interpretation of what Videodrome is, and yeah, I just want to know, like, for you, like, what did you get out of the movie? What do you think the message was? And then what was your favorite body horror thing? So those are kind of our two questions for today. And I do want to start adding more questions in because I do want Horror Movie Club to feel like an experience for, yes, me to like talk about a movie, yay, but mostly for you guys to talk about the movie because it's a club, it's not just me. So that's the questions. Let me know in the chat and I will start to read them out. Bum, bum, bum. And I am also scrolling up the chat to see things I've already missed that I'm sure you've already said. Very, very smart things. Mark liked when Debbie Harry asked Woods if he has any porn. She also says porno. She says, do you have any porno? And I thought that was so funny. I was like, because I feel like we all just say porn. And like she's like, "Do you have any porno?" And I was like, "That's such a weird way to say it." But hey, the 80s. I think I'll go. I guess while I wait, because I know there is a time delay between what I am saying and what you are hearing. I guess my favorite body horror moments is either the evil dude's death at the end with all the gross out stuff, or just anything having to do with the TV itself. The TV gets very like sexual and um icky. Okay, how do I say this? Like there's a lot of like it becomes like human in certain ways throughout the movie. And that's something we haven't really talked about a lot yet is like the sexual side of this movie. And there is a lot of sex in it. Like I feel like we talked mostly about the violence of it, which is obviously a big part of what the Videodrome part of it is. But it also seems to be clear that there is some sort of like sexual satisfaction through Videodrome, about how people can like get off to violence, if you will, and the TV itself sort of becoming a sexual object and sort of personified in a weird way, which I think is like very strange. I'm thinking particularly of the scene where um, in a hallucination, Max is whipping the TV and Nikki is on the TV, like on the screen, having a sexual experience, and the TV is like moving and like having its own sexual experience. Like she is like being the TV is having the sexual experience along with Max. And that is very, very strange. And interesting, but very, very strange. There's also a new movie coming out called Porno. I reviewed it on this channel a while ago. It's coming out on Fangoria is putting it out. I'm not sure when it comes out. I think it's like April or something, but it's really good. So keep an eye out for that. It's a really good movie. Okay. So, couple things on here. What have people said so far? People exploding at the end reminded me of Ready or Not. Yes. That was my favorite part of Ready or Not. By the way. Let's see. People exploding reminds me of Scanners. Cool, cool. The gun slowly drilling wires into his hand. Yes, that was so weird. That was another time where like Travis looked up from his computer because he always was like sitting next to me, and he's like, "Oh no, what is that?" And it is like so gross and awesome. Um, Michael says we were watching Videodrome, so maybe the viewer is hallucinating. I love that. I love that. That's very spooky sounding. I'm scared. Let's see. False Proxy said favorite scenes were the Beta Max scene, or VHS TV scenes really stuck out. Totally, totally. Angela said TV lips. Mark says, if you think about it, Videodrome is pretty much saying we're all getting brainwashed by television. Yep. I think that's definitely what's going on. And the blending of like technology and the human form, and like how basically eventually we're just going to be technology. Like we're going to be one and the same. And like when that happens, does that mean we do not have any more willpower or like choice? Yikes. As I'm talking to you through a live stream. Are you kidding me? It's hilarious. Okay. All right. Let's see. Sky Angel asks, I wonder if the TV adjusts to the person watching, so it's his mind in a way. Yeah, I think so. There is that section where he is wearing what's basically a VR mask, and he can have his hallucinations, and he's told that those hallucinations will then sort of be streamed. And I do think that is. I'm not sure if that's the intention with like the actual Videodrome from the movie, but I do think that's an interesting point to bring up, because with VR now, there's sort of this idea where it's like you could live a whole life in VR goggles and not need to live your real life ever again. It's like if you can make that life so real, if you can make a VR so real, it's like will people stop trying to live their actual lives? Will people just sit in a simulated reality because it's easier or because they can control it better? I don't know. I don't know. Let's see. Ben says it's about people's obsession with the obscene. What do you mean, like us, Ben? Let's see. Michael says favorite body horror was the gun in the stomach. Yes. Especially because that's the first time you like really see that in its full form, and it's like so gross. Ben likes when he tries to hook up with the TV. Hell yeah, hell yeah. Anne says, I wish I had seen this movie when it came out. I definitely did not see it when it came out. I wasn't born either, so sorry. But hello, Tom. Glad you're here. Glad you're here. Okay, so that is Videodrome. Thank you guys, and thank you for participating with the questions at the end. I think that's a cool thing that I'm excited to add. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pull up the rest of the months, the voting for the rest of the month, so we can see what we're going to be talking about this month. As I do that, one more big thing for the chat. I want you guys, and we've done this a couple of different times, but I want to bring it back, even though I meant to do it at the beginning of the video, but I forgot. Which is, say what you watched this week. If you saw any movies you really liked this week, put it in the chat, let each other know about them. If it's helpful, say where you watched it, particularly if it's on like Shudder or something more specific, you can always say that. But yeah, let us know what you watched that you really liked. Or if there's anything you hated, that's also fine. And I'm going to pull up the new version of the voting because a few of you have voted since the beginning of this. Good job. And I will pull it out. All right. All right, we have it. Nice. Okay, I'm feeling good about this. Okay, so our number one vote, which I sort of assumed would happen, is The Fly. So that is the winner. And then how many weeks are there? That's the thing I should check. I don't want to pick too many or too few films. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, we pick 4. Oh my God, there's 4 more Tuesdays. That's wild. Okay. So we have The Fly. We have Scanners. Very excited. We have Dead Ringers. Very excited. And then we have a tie. We have a tie for that 4th one. Okay. I'm going to make the executive decision. So it's a tie between The Brood and Rabid. I'm going to say The Brood because I haven't seen it and I want to. And I've already seen Rabid, and I just watched the Saska twins Rabid, and I feel like I've had enough Rabid, personally. So let's do The Brood. So we have The Fly, Scanners, Dead Ringers, and The Brood. That is for the month. I think what we should do from this point on is just do them in release year order. So I will get that up on Twitter for you guys, and on Friday I will send out the email that I send out after, and you guys can see the full lineup. But I think I'm excited to watch all those. I feel like we're really gonna know Cronenberg by the end of this. It's gonna be great. All right, let's see what you guys watched. Oh, you watched Naked Lunch. Oh, cool. That's for Michael. Let's see. Tom says I'm on Tubi a lot. Yeah, guys, Tubi is a free website that has so many movies on there and a lot of really old TV shows. I would highly recommend it if you haven't checked it out. There's a lot of good horror stuff on there. There's also a lot of really bad horror stuff on there, but you do you. Okay, Mark said I watched Girl on the Third Floor. Daniel Isn't Real. I really like Daniel Isn't Real. I liked Girl on the Third Floor. People are ripping that movie to shreds. I guess it went on Netflix this week, and so my review of it from a long time ago is getting a bunch of new people seeing it, and people really hate it. And I saw it in theaters, and I kind of liked it, but I mean, it's not a perfect movie, and there's definitely problems with it, but I didn't aggressively hate it. And Twitch watched You Don't Fuck with Cats. I feel like I cannot watch that movie because I cannot handle animal torture, and I don't know if that's a huge aspect of it, but I think it is an aspect of it. But I just can't handle it. I just can't handle it. Ben watched The Windmill Massacre. Never heard of that. Is it good? I'm curious. Michael watched Mark of the Devil, 1970. Old school. Very cool. Very cool. Um, I scrolled too far. Oh, Michael also watched Windmill Massacre. Okay. That sounds like a terrible title, but I'm interested. Let's see. Sky Angel tried to watch Martyrs. I've also tried to watch Martyrs, and I haven't gotten all the way through it. It's really intense. It's a tough one to watch, for sure. So I totally hear you on that. I still need to finish it myself. Let's see. What am I? Okay. Tom says CM Punk wasn't that bad. He was not that bad. He was like okay. He was like generally okay. Let's see. We have people talking about history of violence. Oh. That should have been on the list, maybe. Oh yes, and Ben did hear the weekly alarm or AKA siren. It's okay. Zach watched Miss 45. David Psychic Killer. Cool. You guys watched a lot this week. I feel so behind on movies. Like I said, I finished this movie literally as our stream was starting, so that was intense. Okay, so as soon as I get off of here, I will go ahead and put on Twitter the list of movies. We're gonna do it in order of release year. So that should be good. And I'll email it out later this week. Okay, so if you are a Patreon person, we are gonna do our Patreon hangout literally right now. So we're gonna watch a movie together. If you guys are interested in that, there's always a link down below. No pressure, literally at all. But I'm excited to watch a movie with you guys. I've already picked out what we're gonna watch, and so I will send you that link via Patreon and also email. So just it's coming in like 2 minutes. But that's it for now, guys. I am so happy you were here this week. I am so excited to be covering a director for a month. I think that's gonna be really, really cool, and I think we won't do it every month, but maybe we'll like do it every few months. Because I do want to keep coming back with subgenres and like different things like that, to keep it different. You know? So that's it for now, people. Thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I will see you in my next video. Have a nice scream. Goodbye.